This show is part of the Transpodcaster Visibility Initiative.
Right now, I'm really into finding some of the most extreme forms of metal.
Okay.
And that's been an interesting, it's strange. I never thought I'd put one of my favorite bands is Cattle Decapitation, but they were a band that hit a level of, noise I was looking for. And I actually, after doing a lot of research, it's helped me listen even more to jazz, because of the fact that a lot of this seems like noise, but there's amazing precision and everything. And it makes like the recordings of Sun Ra and stuff like that seem more accessible.
Shock and Terror with Sasha, the Princess of Darkness, and Chris, the Martinsburg Madman, in Sasha After Dark, the podcast of darkness. Reboot.
For anybody who's new, this, of course, is the podcast of darkness, or Sasha After Dark, as I like to call it. And we officially entitled this the Reboot because new format, kind of a refresh after a long break. And because I want to get out there into more outlets. And today we're going to be talking with my buddy here, Trevor. Trevor, you want
Hello.
to tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe
Yeah.
about Ambassador Radio a little.
Okay. Well, I've been a film lover since I can remember. My father tells me that I was taken to a theater at 6 months. My mother was compulsive with film and hated children's film. So one of the films that I saw at a very, very young age that I actually would like dance in the theater was Saturday Night Fever. Now, of course, this film was NC-17 if we don't, but that gives you an idea of what I was exposed to. And I was just pounded between that and a lot of music, a lot of jazz, a lot of salsa. And as I grew up, I got involved in radio, and I then, for years, did various shows for college radio stations. About 7 years ago, I developed Ambassador Radio, and it is a show without a genre, kind of piecing divergent concepts together, but have them, they flow and give a certain tasteful amount of history also with that. So I'm on about 10 stations now, and I'm just experimenting with YouTube and how to put the show on YouTube without getting pulled for rights reasons. So I think I've, put about its educational value so many times in the last two videos, there's no way they can do anything.
Well, that's the thing. Like when it comes to YouTube, you're always going to get copyright claims no matter what you're talking about or what
I
you do.
discovered that.
And it's not always going to restrict your video.
Mhm.
One of the things I found, because as we know, this is, of course, your OnlyFans debut, but I don't make my
Hello,
money on
OnlyFans.
but I don't make my money on YouTube. Like this video will later be on YouTube, but to get
Mhm.
it first, unedited, uncut, you're getting it on OnlyFans first.
Mhm.
But it's kind of been my way to defeat the tyranny. So whenever I post something to YouTube, I've been posting it without monetization.
Mhm.
And so you're not going to get copyright strikes with that, but other people would get the ad revenue because their content
Mhm.
is featured. And yeah, that kind of sucks from a critic point of view.
Mhm.
But you also have to understand that like YouTube is not just accessible in the United States.
Mhm.
Um, you and I could go on for hours about all the weird rights issues once a movie goes overseas. I mean,
Mhm.
heck, even over here in the States, some movies and stuff have complicated rights depending on where you're located. Yeah, it may be published or put out by Universal and made by this particular company, but when it gets released overseas and you have all that stuff tacked
Mhm.
on, different laws, and it's all a hazy.
Even
gray
in this licensing world, it can be as different as one company has the rights to produce this media of it, where the other company has the rights to produce this media of it. It gets very difficult.
It's sticky, and it's
Yeah.
always in fluidity, and that's why I really encourage anybody who's on the YouTube algorithm, don't sweat the copyright claims. It's not a copyright strike. The only time you're ever going to see a copyright strike is the moment you try to collect penny one from it. And that's one of the things that you have to accept, especially in the modern YouTube world. This isn't the early days of James Rolfe. I can throw whatever the hell I want on there and make a ton of money. This is now, the Wild West has been somewhat civilized. We have railroads now, and we're more connected. And as a result, there's a little bit more law out there. So I always tell people, I'm like, don't worry about monetization. There's other ways to go around that. Some people do Patreon, but even Patreon's gotten to the point where it's just so overcrowded. Hence why I've said OnlyFans, because who the hell is publishing content on OnlyFans that's talking about media and stuff of that nature? But you'll find out if you look up their details and stuff now, they're more focused on that. There's cooking shows on there now.
Oh, wow.
Yes, there's cooking shows. There's people talking about and reviewing movies. They're also talking and doing stuff about audio. If you're an audiophile, if you're into that type of stuff, it's there. And a lot of these creators, if they're charging anything, it's pennies. And
well, maybe I'm altruistic, or maybe I'm just an idiot, but everything I've ever done, especially, when I started with Ambassador Radio, I don't charge for anything.
Exactly.
I actually created the show after years of running college radio stations and people not wanting to do radio anymore, that you were constantly putting on automation. And I wanted to provide not just stuff to fill the hours. I wanted the programming to sound freeform, professional, but still have like a Calvin Johnson style college quality to it.
Exactly.
And as I said, I might be an idiot, but I've always it's kind of hard for me to think of it on a financial level.
Exactly. And then on top of that, the old saying, the moment you accept penny one for anything that you create, you're a sellout. So you can honestly say, I'm not a sellout.
Not a sellout.
Exactly. I might make a couple bucks here and there off to the side, but sometimes you want to have a horror hostess at a party and watch a bad movie. Hire me.
I'll hire you. Yes, definitely.
But the thing of it is that you've always been big into audio, but one of the things you and I really get along well with is, of course, movies and films. There are days when you're posting your double features, it's like, screw this, I'm coming over.
Well, as I was getting through some really bad times, I started slowly piecing a routine together and making projects. So one of the projects I ended up doing was cataloging on an iDevice my vinyl collection, and I'm still working on my Blu-ray and film collection. And to really kind of see it all out, I do buy a lot. I don't buy movies that I don't have some connection to. But it really made me starting to think, I haven't visited some of these movies in a while, and I have enough films without getting new. And then you mix all the streaming and everything. Why not play around with that home double feature kind of thing? So,
yeah, and trust me, like some of the picks that you have has been like, ooh, I still say we got to have a Fulci marathon.
Oh yeah, well, Fulci is one of my all-time favorite directors.
Especially all the zombie movies and the
zombie movies. Now, here's the thing: do you consider him as having 4 zombie films or 3 gothics and 1 zombie?
If they're titled zombie, it's a zombie film.
Okay, because I know for me, zombie is zombie, but there's this tone in House by a Cemetery, City of the Living Dead, and of course The Beyond. But they all were kind of consecutive and when made, so.
And they're good.
They're exceptional. They're
There are days, though, I just wish I could question Fulci and go, so what's your deal with eyes, buddy?
Yeah, well, he's not. It's funny.
It's like, did you have an accident during your childhood? What's going on? Like, I could see him remaking Saturn 3, but he's like, the eye scene, we got to make that stretched out a little bit.
Yeah, a little more. Yeah.
See, you can tell we watch weird, bad movies. He knows what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Saturn 3.
Well, here's the thing, if Fulci directed opera, her eyes would have been ripped out.
Exactly.
No matter how high a character she is in importance, we're gonna rip her eyes out.
She'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll just get those pins right in there.
Indeed. So what brings us together today is we both recently saw Cocaine Bear. I loved it. I thought it was a complete and weird, wild romp. You got to leave the factual bits of what really happened off to the side when you go see this movie. Because at the end of the day, there was no killing, no maiming, just a big giant bear that OD'd on cocaine. These, writers and directors have taken it a step forward. And yeah, very entertaining, very enthralling. Great role, last role for what's his name? I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Ray Liotta.
Ray Liotta, great Ray Liotta, like last hurrah. I think this is officially his final.
I think that was officially his last movie. Yes,
but it was good. I enjoyed it for what it was. Wasn't going in there expecting Oscar caliber performances, but I also wasn't going in there expecting Asylum either. Just went in there saying, "Hey, I'm going to go in here with my kid, my partner, and a couple of friends. Take a look at this."
I took my kids, actually, a second showing for me.
But yeah, it was a trip. If you haven't seen it yet, go see it. If Scream 6 is busy, go watch this. Trust me, it's not a waste of money. You will laugh, you will have a good time, and there's plenty of the white stuff and a lot of the red stuff.
It definitely falls into that category of a splat core or splat comedy. Yeah. So I kind of wanted to not like it just so I could use the pun. It was unbearable.
Yes.
But unfortunately, it was a very fun movie. It was very well put together. It was beautifully paced. It was perfect popcorn fodder for like the 42nd or 42nd Street crowd.
Yes.
It was a definite love letter to the, animal run amok film.
Yep. And I mean, I love Nature Runs Amok. I know a lot of people just say Animal Runs Amok, but I always like to go with Nature Run Amok.
Eco horror in its own way.
Yes, but more specifically, like when the animals are involved, you got like some sort of bear. I mean, hell, Jaws, pioneered it with the whole shark aspect, and it kind of became its own sub genre with shark movies. But a lot of stuff and a lot of the movies that came after Jaws were, we're going to make a movie like Jaws, but this time we're going to put it on the land. Let's throw Leslie Nielsen in just for fun.
Well, I mean, you can't mention, any animal on the Rampage film and not mention the 66 birds. It's kind of interesting. Hitchcock, there's a lot of contemporary horror, just how things are constructed that are very much in debt to Hitchcock.
Yes.
But a lot of people say, it's interesting. I grew up on the big monster movies and things like that. And you go back and in their own way, like Tarantula, The Deadly Mantis are all eco films in their own way.
Yeah, especially with Tarantula, you get an early Clint Eastwood appearance, which I think is kind of cool. Because he's flying the fighter jet. Yes, it's 3 seconds. I can't remember what he was on set for that day, but they're like, "You look like a pilot. Let's strap you in and get this shot." And technically, that is his first role. But no, like Tarantula is a great one. I've always liked them, but that kind of gets into the whole giant animal, and there's nothing wrong with that, because then you get to explore stuff like good old Night of the Lepus, which that's it's kind of weird.
Exactly. there are so many subgenres and little areas to the ecological horror film or the animal run amok film. Because I was really going over some of my favorites the past couple weeks, and I came to understand some of my favorites are ones where you have, a group or a person using animals in a nefarious way, and it isn't what you would necessarily think as a nature runs amok film, but it is, a human, violating nature, and that nature, doing horrible things based on what the humans have taught them. So in that way, that is also an animal run amok film.
Yeah. And like same way with like Ben and Willard.
Ben and Willard, yes, that's the.
So those are fun. I mean, me, when I get into the whole animal thing, I just immediately am like, oh, Bird Eye Gordon right off the bat. I mean, hell, that dude made a killing just making movies. Wasn't he did Empire of the Ants, or am I mistaken?
He did his films that fall into the category, Food of the Gods, which is outstanding. Beginning of the End. He
The
also
Locust.
did yeah. Are the other ones I'm thinking of? Empire of the Ants, of course. And then The Spider, which was a 1950s film. But those are the only like major. I mean, you always kind of like hear the name Bird Eye Gordon. You think of like the auteur of the giant animal film.
Didn't he do Gila Monster too?
I don't think so.
I thought he did Gila. I mean, granted, yes, that one's been remade enough times. So I could have swore he was involved with Gila. I could be wrong.
Yeah, well, it's.
And Black Scorpion, no, not Black Scorpion, but it had a Black Scorpion in it, where it just kept growing after they freed it from the rock.
I'm trying to think. How do you spell Gila Monster?
Gila. Looks like Gila.
For some reason, it's not coming up. Oh well.
But yeah, I could swear he was involved in that one.
And he was involved in some, because he was a kind of a hired on at whatever he could do in movies, and did a little bit of everything.
What was the one with the giant rat? And I want to say it either had Lance Henriksen in it, or it had the guy from RoboCop, but there was a rat living.
Peter Weller, of unknown origin.
Okay, yeah, big giant rat. Yeah. Would would The Uninvited be considered a animal attack movie? It's a cat inside of a cat.
Yeah, the one with George Kennedy.
Yes.
Technically, I don't know. It's really there's so many subgenres. It's hard to sometimes. I mean, Long Weekend out of Australia is probably the quintessential, like, this is nature as the third main character in the film. And but no, it's kind of weird, going down some of my favorites. It was just not what I expected. And it definitely comes from the whole, you had the Atom Age film and the atom bomb, and that's kind of the nucleus. Even go back as far as Creature from the Black Lagoon. They're encroaching on that creature's territory, hence bringing upon it themselves. I mean, if you want to do that, but
see, I've always enjoyed Grizzly, but it ran a lot on cable when I was a kid. Where it was, I think his original title was supposed to be Paws or Claws or something like that. But because it was essentially Jaws, but with a grizzly bear. And of course, no water, because that wouldn't make any sense. Water bears and not be about water bears.
Probably the most famous film by William Girdler. Yeah, Grizzly is a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Edward Frontero, who was making a lot of these big creature movies, was a shyster, and actually Girdler almost didn't get paid for Grizzly. And
Mm.
luckily, they pieced their relationship together enough and quickly enough that Day of the Animals happened. But no,
That movie's a trip.
Montero was a total shyster.
So, like, and this is the thing I've always had a hard time with Day of the Animals. Like, was Leslie Nielsen's character always that unbalanced, or was whatever
I don't
doing
know,
whatever
but it
was?
is
Yeah,
a cinematic joy to see Leslie Nielsen do some of the things he does in that film.
but no, it just trips me out because I'm like, okay, so are we now saying that whatever was affecting the animals is now affecting the humans? And that was what I was kind of taking away from it, but it just seemed a little contrived because it didn't seem like everybody else was acting the same way he was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm like, I'm not sure what you're trying to tell me here, movie, but there's definitely a plot thread that'd be really interesting to explore.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm surprised it didn't expound on it, but nature attacks. Kingdom of the Spiders was one I was thinking.
King of the Spiders is an excellent film.
Yep. Good old William Shatner running around.
Yeah.
It pairs great, like again with Night of the Lepus, like Kingdom of the Spiders and then Night of the Lepus, because you're getting two Star Trek alums there.
Yeah, true.
Which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's not McCoy in his pimp suit, but we're pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the only good takeaway from which Star Trek was that, the first or the second one, where Bones shows up in like the pimp suit.
I forget.
But it's
I'll be
like,
honest.
this is a side of Bones we've never seen.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, wow, he quit
Good old
Starfleet.
DeForest Kelly.
Yep.
I miss DeForest Kelly.
But no, like Animals Attack is like a very interesting subgenre. There's been a lot of movies with bears.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed that. Like Cocaine Bear isn't alone, nor is Grizzly. Grizzly 2 recently got reissued and completed. There's been a huge debate on, well, which is better, the work print or what we got in cinemas, and I've yet to decide.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm sitting there like, do I really want to drop $30 on a Blu-ray? Do I really want to do it? Is there somewhere I can rent this for cheap before I commit for that purchase price?
The good old days of Netflix when you used to get the disc, you could check it out.
Yeah, I mean, you can still do that, which is interesting to know, but a lot of people have kind of grown past that because they're like, well, now I got to pay extra for that and the streaming model. And I'm sitting there like, well, the streaming model used to be included with the DVD.
Yep.
But,
amazing how things change.
But no, it's like with Crabs recently, and I've been seeing trailers for that forever. Very low budget indie film dealing with killer horseshoe crabs.
Kind of like Island Claws.
Yes. But very different because it's you can tell that these people have a love for B movies and guys in giant rubber suits because it goes total kaiju style, like by the third act.
Okay.
That was another one where it was like the Blu-ray is so much, and I found out why that was because one of those like companies that'll send you like boxes of DVDs and Blu-rays for like a low monthly cost, and they're yours to keep. They included that as one of their premiums in one of the boxes. And now you can't find the DVD by itself without paying more than like 40 or 50 bucks a pop.
Oh, wow.
Or the Blu-ray. And I was like, no, screw that. Let me see if Vudu has it. And lo and behold, you can buy it as a digital copy for like $4. And I was like,
oh, wow.
And it was humorous. It wasn't what I expected it to be based on some of the trailers, because they do show a lot of the really, really good gore, but they kind of don't touch on the camp factor.
Okay.
But the camp factor, especially with the foreign exchange student who winds up being kind of a badass, though nobody understands him and keeps him around for comic relief, makes the movie. Because the whole time they're like, oh, this guy's going to die. Poor German kid's going to die. And no, he winds up being a badass.
Wow.
And it was a pretty interesting movie, but again, you got to have that tolerance for crap. Again, we're not talking asylum crap.
Like Velocipastor kind of crap?
the crap that knows it's crap, but it's having fun with the fact that it's crap. It's like, yes, we know we have a shoestring budget. We're going to use that shoestring budget as far as we can pull it, but we're still going to have fun and not take ourselves seriously.
Like Housegeist.
Yeah, like it kind of reminds me of a lower budget Gremlins 2.
Okay.
With all of the zany camp, which I always find humorous because, like, sometimes they allow directors to make sequels, and the sequels are like, oh, so you guys want a sequel? Okay, I'm going to make the sequel my way, and it is going to be the most absurd shit you've ever seen. You'll be surprised if you want me to make another movie ever again. You know, and big names like Tobe Hooper have done that. The guy who did the original House did House 2, and a lot of people don't realize that. They're like, wait, House and House, like, it's completely different. Like, you've got dark comedy, heavy on the dark, and then all of a sudden we've gone really heavy on the comedy.
Comedy, yes. Yeah, it's that's a very schizophrenic franchise to begin with. After 2, much less.
So. I don't even count 4, but I do love the horror show. So
yeah,
and I can see why the studio was like, well, this really isn't a House movie. Let's see if we can't advertise it as something else. But ever since, it kind of screwed up our numbering system with the House movies. In fact, I heard recently House is supposed to get a remake. So I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, I've heard bits and pieces about that.
To me, it's like, stop the remake train, you know? Unless you want to do something original or different with it. Because I always have to remind people, as much as they hate me for saying it, and God knows people hate me for saying a lot of things, but, you know, at the end of the day, John Carpenter's thing is a remake. It's still a fucking awesome movie.
Oh, yeah.
Fly by Cronenberg is a remake.
It's an awesome. There are occasions when you have remakes that surpass, and also times just at least bring everything exactly up to that time period.
Here's the one that annoys everybody when I say it. And Alien is a remake, and a lot of people go, what? And I'm like, yeah, the terror from beyond space,
yes,
and everybody's like, I'm like, yeah, look it up, it's free, you can watch it on YouTube right now. Pause, come back to us later, watch that, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But no, like, there's a lot of good movies out there, but a lot of people hop into the whole remake thing and don't try to not only do their own thing with it, but then try to honor the original in some way.
The difference between a remake and a reboot, which I just recently, I'm forgetting exactly where I heard the discussion, but it was a rather in-depth discussion about the differentiation between those two things. That a remake is kind of pointless, but a reboot could be very important for the legacy of a film.
Right. And then you have the requel, which I am not a fan of, or basically a retcon sequel where it's like, okay, so you have the first movie, and yeah, they might have 20 movies after that. We are only counting these movies out of this series, and then this is the next one after it. Now, there are some franchises that desperately need it, like the Alien series. Yes, let's just reboot from 3. And I know a lot of people are like, why 3? I'm like,
I love 3. 3 is a gorgeous film.
The story. You know, I mean, yeah, it'd be interesting to see a remake with Fincher re-involved, but that would be a completely different film than what we got. I would also have loved to have seen, what is his name? The guy who did Pitch Black, because a lot of folks don't know.
Oh, yeah. I forget his name.
But he actually wrote that as a treatment for Alien 3. And it was going to be its own thing. And a lot of people don't realize that. And I'm like, oh, yeah, because he also helped, I want to say he directed Critters 2 and might have helped with some of the scripting, even though I know the majority of the scripting of that was done
Critters
by
2.
Garris.
Okay, what I think Critters 2 wasn't Garris, was it?
Garris was involved with it.
Yeah.
I know he did some of the writing. I want to say he helped with some of the directing. I'm not sure what all credits he got for that. I know I got him to sign my copy of Critters 2 that I had, plus what was the name of that movie? It always was on the tip of my tongue, but I love it to death because it was part of the Masters of Horror collection that he had wrote. You know, the one with the what's his name from all Billy something or other, Billy Drago.
Billy Drago, yeah.
Yes, and it had that Western but Japanese feel to it. The deformed chick.
Oh, that was the Sasuke Miike one.
Yes,
Yes,
because Mick Garris was involved with that.
Imprint, if I remember
Yes,
correctly.
yes.
Yeah.
I had that signed by him, and I want to say there was something else I had signed by him when he was up at the drive-in not too long ago. I'll say about a year or two back. So yeah, last year all I got was the little guy from Neverending Story, and I know he did some suit shots for Yoda, and he was in the Willy Wonka remake. And I'm like, Mick Garris is more of a draw. I don't know what Craig is pulling out of his hat for some of these appearances, but it's like, come on, if you can get Mick Garris one year, that's awesome. Don't get me
that makes me think of something that I experienced that was really saddening. This would have been going back about maybe 10, 15 years. It was at a Gettysburg horror film festival that they would have. I forget what they called it.
It wasn't a Creature Feature Weekend, was it?
No, it was like a horror convention.
Okay.
Yeah, and I forget who the main. I think it might have been Romero.
Okay.
That year, but I remember going into the area where they have the signing, and I stumbled upon somebody. I was just like, oh, and the guy did not have a line, and that was Dick Miller. And I walked up to him. I was like, I just need to shake your hand. He was really nice and everything, but nobody. I mean, he's sitting there. It's Dick Miller, and at that time, it just wasn't, even though he had been connected with so many horror things,
right?
Just kind of, the various zombies from Dawn of the Dead were getting more people wanting signatures. It was kind of depressing.
Yeah, because Dick Miller's awesome. Like, as terrible as it sounds, I keep a bunch of his photos. Like, for anybody who sends me something inappropriate online, that's the dick pic I send.
Okay, nice. Dick Miller, that's wonderful.
It's a classy one. The most classiest one you'll ever meet.
Which, do you send a picture of, bucket of blood? And
just pictures of him, just random as the clerk there in Night of the Creeps.
Yeah.
Him as the janitor and what is that? Chopping Mall. Oh, Jim's gonna get mad at me. I forgot that one.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, Dick Miller's awesome, but it's strange. It's kind of like what's his name? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. George something or other. Dude's a dentist. Starred in one movie, Troll 2. And his he always gets disappointed when he goes to horror cons because people don't recognize him until somebody says, oh yeah, it's the guy from Troll 2. You can't piss on hospitality, I won't allow it. But yeah, no, it's shameful. Like, sometimes you'll go to these conventions and you're like, how do you not know who this person is? You should be at this table. I'm kind of glad that even Mick is getting a bit of a resurgence between his podcast. He's got a show with Eli Roth now on Shudder, which is nice. And yeah, really great guy. I have him on Facebook as a friend. Him and I chat on occasion, which is cool. Been forever trying to kidnap him for the show, but busy schedules and whatnot. But no, yeah, horror shows always intrigue me. But back to animals attacking.
Yeah, back to animals attacking.
Yeah, see, we always devolve on this show. We start with general topic,
never a problem,
and we go elsewhere, and that's okay. Yes. Sometimes it works. Yeah. It's podcast masturbation; just goes everywhere.
You had to go for the money shot, didn't you?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
But when it comes to creature attack films and monster attacks, I have always enjoyed, now granted, you'll get into some, the sci-fi ones, the more heavy sci-fi ones. You'll have something like, Peter Benchley, who wrote Jaws, and then he'll do something like White Shark, as it was previously known, or The Creatures, that got later released as that big, long, two-parter movie with the mutant shark creature.
Okay.
which essentially was Jaws, but except he can go on land now. Hell, I even also, as weird as it sounds, I would consider Nature Run Amok. Yeah, you throw in the Tremors movies, at least the first two.
See, the big thing is, when it comes to ecology movies and nature run amok films, the big thing you need to separate is the fact, like, how is it different from a disaster film?
Right.
Because when you come down to the end of the day, that's kind of just where, Roland Emmerich has never made a animals run amok film.
No.
Earthquake, which, it's tectonics. A little too deep there. That doesn't categorize. Of course, anything else that is like that, like
But
Tower
giant
Inferno, an
earthworms?
airplane. There's no, but they have the same themes and tones. It's just
Right.
very different genres.
But like Tremors, because I love that movie. I mean, here are these creatures that nobody suspected living underneath the ground. And to me, it kind of falls into that.
Well, it definitely falls into the 1950s creature feature element of it.
But it's something that existed in nature. We just didn't happen to know about it, which is what I kind of like, where it's like, oh yeah, nobody's ever told you about these things.
It's like these suddenly show up. How has the surroundings created such issues for their ecosystem that now they're, suddenly coming to life and letting themselves known?
But no, like for me, it's always been about the bears. I love bear attack movies because you're dealing with such a massive form of nature. Like even a black bear, as cute and cuddly as they look, can still screw your day up. And so I think like when it came to like land terrestrial animals, that's a good one. The Beast that recently came out with Idris Elba. I don't know if you've seen that one yet.
Oh yes, that's exceptional. I really like that.
It was like, how many
ways I have a thing for Idris Elba.
Yeah, so
big time. Yeah.
Major.
Luther is actually, it's interesting. In years of depression and mental illness, media has played a great role in me getting through it. I remember at one point I could only watch Luther. That was it. Nothing else.
Have you listened to any of his old DJ sets? Because he used to be a DJ. Okay.
Yep.
So I'm like, ooh, that would be something I would ask him about, because he used to do a lot of like raves and whatnot, and like Great Britain, and I'm like, ain't no good looking man like that been to any rave I've ever been to.
I'm hoping he's Bond. I really am.
Yes. But one of these days he should be. I don't know. That was a trippy thing, since you bring up Bond, that had never occurred to me. But apparently, Ian Fleming hung out with what was his name? Not Christopher Lee. Was it Christopher Lee? No, the guy who did the Metal album, that hung out with Lee and Price a lot.
I did the Metal album. That
I want to say he's a Christopher as well. Old guy, used to be in classic gothic horror along with Price and Cushing, and was also in a couple of the Star Wars prequels.
Oh, is it Peter Cushing?
Not Peter Cushing, the prequels. The
prequels. Okay.
Played Count Dooku.
Oh, that was Christopher Lee.
Yeah, okay. Well, Christopher Lee, apparently in his younger years, that was Ian Fleming's inspiration for James Bond. And I'm like,
yeah.
Wait, we missed out on this? Because why?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Christopher Lee was a beyond colorful character.
But yeah, that was basically, like the basis, Ian Fleming pictured him as Bond. And I'm like, definitely better than Sean Connery. Yeah.
Well, I like Connery, I have to admit,
Yeah, but if we would have gotten Lee.
Christopher Lee, and
the dude had presence.
Even in Jess Franco films.
Yep, indeed. And especially all those old Hammer films that he was in.
Exactly.
Because wasn't he in one of the ones that were kind of mixed with like martial arts as well?
It was Cushing that was
He
in
did that one. I know that one.
Seven Golden Vampires.
Yes.
If he did it as just a walk-on kind of thing.
Okay.
Kind of like what he did with Deadline. So
Yes, it just seemed like a missed opportunity, like him in a hybrid horror kung fu movie.
mhm.
I'd watch it. Of course,
Yeah,
I'd watch
it too. I mean, if you can sit through what is the contents of the Euro Christopher Lee box sets, yeah, I can sit for that. So yeah,
Well,
he did some turkeys in his day.
You're talking to me. I can sit through like horrible, horrible kung fu movies all day long, like The Crippled Masters.
Yeah,
That's
good
a
film.
movie that's on repeat at that
Yeah,
house. It's like, oh, they're gonna Voltron up. They're gonna combine their powers.
exactly.
But no, like with like animal attack films, like like my big ones have always been like Day of the Animals, Night of the Lepus. But again, that kind of goes into the giant animal fair. Phase 4, and a lot of people don't like.
Phase 4 is a phenomenal film.
It's such a
It seems more like a science fiction film to people, but it is an ecology film.
And to me, just that ending always messes with me. Because I'm sitting there like, I'm confused. I'm trying to find the Cliff's notes. Like, what did I miss here? Like, everybody else is dead. They let these two go after climbing out of an ant mound. What's going on? I'm confused. But yeah, that's a fun one. Bugs always seem to be a good one.
Yeah.
What was that one? It was supposed to be a remake of They Nest, but it's definitely not a remake of They Nest. Or The Nest. Oh, that's what it was. So you have
that's
Nest,
a movie I have not visited in a while.
But
which is actually quite good.
Which was supposed to be a remake of The Nest. That one's really good with bugs on the attack.
Okay, because the original The Nest is exceptional.
The original The Nest being like a Roger Corman film. With the cat roach creature, which always been a highlight to me. But they don't do the whole mutation thing with basically They Nest. It's more like, okay, here are these screwed up cockroaches that are invading this island. They can eat people and nest inside of them, but they don't become like zombies. You just got to deal with hordes and hordes of angry, pissed off roaches. And that one's really, really good. And I think it was a sci-fi movie back when they still made good movies on the channel.
Yeah.
Before they went 180 into the asylum nightmare that is. It's like the other day I had to hit up my buddy, like Kyle Rios, who used to do the Ludicrous podcasts, where him and his comedic buddy would talk about all kinds of stuff, sci-fi, horror, things of that nature, but in a comedic sort of way. He had wrote like a spec script called Meth Gators, about a bunch of alligators that get into meth. And recently I saw a poster for a very similar themed, like meth inspired creature. I'm like, Kyle, you need to get this script done because Asylum's already trying to jack you.
Yeah. Well, it's funny how, it's kind of the old adage of like, the basement at cons. So you'd have these filmmakers going to cons with posters and nothing else.
Yep.
Poster.
That's how George Lucas did with Star Wars.
If they can talk the people in, they'll get investors.
And
that's where a lot of these movies that just suddenly pop up. You just see, it's just a poster, but it got backing. So.
Well, I mean, hell, when it came to Leprechaun 4, good old Leprechaun in Space, all somebody did was take the poster of that one Apollo movie that came out that had like them in the ship or the rocket or whatever it was, but they pasted the face of the Leprechaun on. That's Leprechaun 4, and then somebody made it, and it's like, at some point you went too far. That's why I had to laugh at Scream, the new Scream, because they're in New York, and I'm like, well, at least they can't go to space. And of course, all my friends are like, well, what do you mean they can't go to space? I'm like, well, in space, no one can hear you scream, so they can't do the movie there. Oh, but yeah, it's like these are too far.
Mm.
Eight-Legged Freaks, another
Eight-Legged Freaks is an excellent one. That
Komodo.
was Komodo. Yes, that was good.
Yeah, because you had a bunch of special effects
Daniel
guys.
Arquette was in Eight-Legged Freaks, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
David Arquette, not Daniel Arquette.
Yep. Poor David Arquette.
Mm.
They did him dirty in Scream 5. I'm sorry. To me, you don't kill Dewey. It's like, come on, he's supposed to be your dopey comic relief cop.
Mhm.
And I just love the fact that he had it right within the first half hour of the movie. Oh yeah, it's probably those two.
Mm.
It's like, is that why he had to die?
Mhm. Yeah, that's another franchise. I saw the first one, but I didn't follow the franchise.
The second one was okay.
Mhm.
I didn't like they killed Randy in the second one because that was kind of like all of our movie buffs, Avatar in those films. We all wanted to be Randy, the
Mhm.
nerd who knew all the horror tropes and survived. But of course, in the second one, like, nah, we're gonna kill him. It's like, seriously. And so now they have contrived ways of bringing his family back into it. Like in the third one, they had his sister show up with a videotape.
Mhm.
By the time we had the fourth one, the sister was able to give us some exposition on his ideas, you
Mhm.
know. And then in the fifth one, and I'm probably assuming the sixth one, that sister has since had kids who've kind of become our film nerds. And it's like,
Mhm.
oh, I didn't know film nerd ran in the bloodline. We just keep propagating more film nerds.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hopefully.
I don't know. My eldest is on a video game trip, but he
Okay.
does like the new Last of Us TV show. So
Mhm.
that's a plus. Something you need to check out since
I've
now
heard very good things.
they've adapted it to a medium that would probably be more comfortable for you than trying to sit
Mhm.
through a 14-hour game.
Yeah. Yeah, I could never get through level one. It just wouldn't happen. I'm
Uh,
video game illiterate.
but I think you would enjoy watching
Hmm.
the show because it's a different take on the whole. Everybody goes, oh, well, it's zombie apocalypse. I'm like, no, it's Attack of
Fungus
the Mushroom
apocalypse.
People.
Yeah.
It's Attack of
And
the Mushroom
Tango.
People.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
More scientifically accurate,
Accurate version. Yeah. So,
those cordyceps that we all time heard about as kids. Somebody finally, that's that's a horror situation where
mm. Yeah. Let's take as kids when you're out in the forest and you get that thing and it says like spores. Now they finally taken that and made it into a horror concept.
exactly,
Yeah.
again,
Because
how
I
is it?
remember being, when you're young, so you're like, ugh.
Well,
It's
the whole
something that's
thing
supposed to do that.
with a fungus that can hijack the brain of an
Hmm.
insect to propagate its species. And then somebody crazy enough goes, yeah, well, what if humans or the environment was a little bit warmer than it was and they could make that jump to humans? And it's like,
Hmm.
it's nature ran amok, technically.
That is technically a nature on movie. I mean, this is where it's a really elastic genre. Um, uh, a Knock at the Cabin can be argued as an ecological horror film. Now I'm assuming your viewers and stuff are probably pretty much they've watched films. I don't want to give anything away, but there are four major disasters. And if you look at the fourth one, which would take it out of the nature run amok film, and you put it into the number of major turbulence issues we've had with airlines over the past 2 months, it then goes atmosphere O. So, there's a lot of give room to the nature run amok, the animal run amok film. Um, so
Well, wasn't that one? Because I want to say, didn't M. Night do one where the plants were kicking out some sort of toxin that was killing everybody or driving them crazy?
it doesn't ring a bell.
The
It
Happening?
wasn't The Happening.
The Happening.
Happening.
Yeah, but that wasn't M. Night, was it?
That was M Night. Yep.
Yeah, because that involved kind of like its own ecological thing where all
Yep.
the plant life in the area was messing up people's days.
Hmm.
And that was intriguing. Um, Oh, I'm trying to think of the name of it. And it's another one that has weird bugs in it. Bugs seem to be a big thing, I guess, because it dips into people's fears.
Hmm.
But the one where this person finds this rare breed of insect underneath the ground, and it can only exist in certain pressures. Well, the jackass breeds it with regular cockroach, and these bugs cause fire, and they eat the
Oh,
cinder and the
Bug.
ashes. Oh, it's just called Bug. Okay.
Bug. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
an excellent film.
Yeah, that's another one that's I always kind of go, nature run amok. Um,
Somebody.
Squirm with the
Swarm.
worms
Swarm is excellent.
and the slugs, or was the slugs a separate movie?
Slug. Well, Slugs is a Spanish movie.
Okay,
Yeah.
I could have swore I saw one that had like slugs in it that bit. That's how much late night cable I watched as a kid. Like some of the stuff just
Whether it was
blended
Slugs
together.
is that way, but then Night of the Creeps in itself has that weird kind of like leeches thing.
No, I clearly remember somebody's out in their garden and there's slugs and they go to swat one away and it tries to bite his finger.
I'm sure it's probably Slugs.
Yeah, and I'm just like, that's trippy. And Squirm with the worms.
So Lieberman's Swarm is excellent. I adore that film.
Frogs.
Frogs, which I do enjoy. It's a Ray Milland film, and Ray Milland at that point when he was basically taking whatever role could just eat up the screen. So he was, at his most, pompous.
And then there was one with fire ants, I want to say, but I'm not 100% certain. It dealt with like a resort or somebody trying to open a resort. And they're building and constructing stuff, and even the construction workers are getting attacked by the fire ants and getting killed. Again, vague memories of watching stuff on early cable at a far
exactly.
young age. Yeah. Back in the day of horror hosts on the regular, it didn't just find us on YouTube. No, we were on your late night cable.
Yeah, television, exactly.
Before Rhonda Shear and Gilbert Godfrey ruined it all for us.
Well, it was interesting going through and actually thinking about, what movies in this genre do I like? And it, was kind of surprising to me. There's a really great one that was made in 1968 by Kazui Nakamatsu called Genocide. And it is another bug film. So I highly recommend it to anybody who likes the killer bug idea. But it's also a kind of spy-esque communist fear film that is just it's wonderful. It's beautifully filmed and everything, and it's I really recommend it, especially if you're into Japanese cinema too.
Wasn't there
One
a
that
Japanese film, and I want to say somebody recently did a documentary on it, but it never got completed, but it was done by Toho, and it was supposed to involve giant like rats or rodents.
Yes, there's a wonderful publication. I can't remember the name of the gentleman who wrote it, but it is all of the unfinished kaiju scripts that were in Japan at a certain time.
But they were filming this with like live rats.
Yes, there's test footage floating around.
Okay.
Yeah,
because apparently somebody made a doc where they recreated a lot of the scenes that were supposed to be in this film, and yeah, I've been trying to find it because I want to watch it. So I'm like, oh, that documentary just looks like it'd be fun. Where it was a failed Toho project, because a lot of people when they think Toho, they immediately jump to kaiju, and I'm like, no, they've done everything under the sun.
Yes,
they've done thrillers, they've done horror movies like Sweet Home.
Home of Akira Kurosawa.
Yes, and like I mentioned earlier, like Sweet Home, like a classic that's lost the time due to.
Do you know why they, it could mean another Kurosawa, but that Kurosawa, is it him that doesn't want the film released, or is it a rights issue? Because he's very respected as a director.
The original director, number one of, I assume we're still talking about Sweet Home.
Yes,
the original director, and I know he went on to do some other prolific Japanese films. I want to say, wasn't he the same guy that did Spiral?
I don't know if he did Spiral, but the gentleman who was connected to it did Cure and Pulse.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
But I know the director felt it was too commercial because they had a game and a movie that came out the same day. And nobody still to this day knows was it the game or the movie that came first. There has been no conclusive evidence. It was the first time that a game and a movie came out at the same time, and neither can tell whose origins are what. Lost Dick Smith special effects, which I've seen through like bootlegs of the laser disc. I want that laser disc. I will find that laser disc.
It's on your bucket list.
Yes. My white whale, so to speak. But at the end of the day, like the director was like, it's too commercial. It's not representative of my work. So I recently heard about Cure. I'm kind of curious about seeing.
Cure is awesome.
Yeah, because this sounds
awesome.
Sounds really good. Because I was listening.
It is a totally different take on the serial killer concept.
I was listening to Horror Movie Survival Guide, which is a great podcast, and they'll go into details about movies. And then Nightmare on Film Street covered it too.
Okay.
And yeah, both of them were like, wow, this is a very different take. Which shocks me that he says that movie was too commercial, but then he went on to do Pulse, and Pulse had the American remakes. And I mean, I hate to say it, but if you want to be technical, Pulse in and of itself might be a remake too, if you'd consider that one late 70s, early 80s movie titled Pulse with a little Joey Lawrence in it. Because that was a thing. But yeah, to me, it's like that. And I heard that one of the producers was killed by the Yakuza.
Oh.
Basically, there was a situation where he was up on top of one of them tall, like, parking structures, and he was confronted by the Yakuza for, I don't know what was going on between them two, but it was one of those situations where we can gun you down or you can jump off his parking lot. And he chose to take the jump instead. And so as a result, because of the death involved with the film and because of the director, it's kind of set at Toho in limbo. And to me, it's like, you know, it was a good film for the director. Yeah, it may have been commercial, but let's be honest, what filmmaker hasn't gotten his starts in something commercial or hokey in the very early beginnings? I mean, a lot of our modern filmmakers started out doing Pepsi commercials.
Yes.
Music videos. So I don't see...
the directors almost all came from the video making business. Yeah.
To me, it's like, just issue it, you know, or even if it was just something exclusive to Japan, so I can get my little...
At least get your hands on it. Yeah.
Yes, I just want to watch it. Toho, give me a private screening. But no, like, I mean, I love, like, some of the ones that you've just mentioned, like yeah, that, like, for me it's Grizzly. I like to go into the absurd, so of course, you know, Kingdom of the Spiders, just to watch William Shatner wow out about spiders, especially that ending. It's like, wow, this has gone pretty far. And then for me, I would say another one, like, at least recently, I enjoyed Cocaine Bear. You know,
Cocaine Bear is definitely fun. Now, you know, it's interesting. One of my all-time favorite animal run amok films is 1984's Wild Beast, and it was directed by Franco Prosperi, and Prosperi is known for, of course, Mondo Cane. It was his only narrative film, and it is over the top. It is, I mean, like a cheetah trying to chase down a car and elephants, and the now Prosperi brought this from his Italian background of Mondo films. It is problematic because of animal mistreatment. There's a definite thing with rats, in which one of the most, you know, really truly gory and effective thing, but they do end up killing a lot of rats. But Wild Beast is also very close to Cocaine Bear because the basic concept is PCP somehow gets into the water supply, and at least for one cycle, everybody who has the tap water gets a certain level of PCP. And as you mentioned before, then it eventually leads into adult or children and things like that getting it. But it eventually wears off. So that, you know, it is a lot of fun from Post, but I like it better than I like his Mondo films like Africa Ideal or things of that nature.
Now, there's one that you brought up when you and I first started talking about this, and you haven't mentioned it yet, and I've been quietly biting my lip.
Okay.
But it's another one that kind of dips into the sci-fi a little bit, where an animal grows to pretty large proportions.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got a balding cop, which I know isn't.
You always need a balding cop, usually played by Saxon. So.
Oh, not in this one. Not
or
in this
Ironside.
one. But I'm surprised you haven't mentioned it yet.
What is it?
Seriously? It had the miniature work in it where they used the live one, the walkthrough stuff. It was in the 80s. Also ran on cable a lot. Had a sequel that's nowhere near as good as the original.
Well, are you talking about Alligator?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes, of course, 1980s Alligator, which, is best known because of the John Sayles script. But no, that's one of my all-time favorite films in general.
Oh,
I remember
I'm trying to spoil it. I'm sitting there like, oh, I wanted this.
Yeah, this. I mean, it is Robert Forster. It is such a beautiful Jaws ripoff. It does it so well, and
That pool scene.
mm,
That pool scene ruined a lot of childhoods.
yeah, and you did mention it. I watched Mutations, and I don't even remember what I watched, but it was a very disappointing sequel.
It was a disappointing sequel, but let's be honest, when it comes to sequels, there have been much worse out there.
Now, here's one that needs to be on Blu-ray, and I'm certain that it is at the same time there was a film that was from the U.S., not to be confused with the Italian ones, but called Crocodile. Do you remember that?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, that actually was quite good.
It even had a sequel too, as well.
I believe it did, and it was a really
year
crappy,
later.
Yeah.
I did like that Australian one with the saltwater croc and the people that are
Oh.
on the poor boat.
Yes.
And I think the dog survives, but I might be wrong.
I think.
Because the whole time you're watching it, like, does the dog make it? Is the dog dead? But yes, it's all Australian. That one, I can't think of the name of that one. That one was pretty good. Lake Placid.
Lake Placid. That was okay. That's right, and that had Betty White in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're feeding little baby alligators.
Well, another great animal run amok film that is more on a personal level of how these animals, work with the characters is the William Graffé film called Stanley.
Okay.
Yes. That one's and that's also a cultural message film in its own way too. But it's just, one of those great, snake films that, your main character, it brings it very much into like Ben and Willard is, he's emotionally connected to these animals and has even named them and marries two of them and has a nice little place for them to live. And
Toby Hooper's Eaten Alive kind of dip into that a little bit too.
A little bit, but he was more just like, he had this big crocodile, people just, happened to get close and
yeah, because that was one I always thought of. I don't know why. I guess it's just an animal being used. Then there was one, and I want to say it had what's her name? Michelle Rodriguez in it. And it may have been a direct-to-video, but these kids decide to go party on an island. And at some point, the people had experimented on dogs on the island, and now the dogs are running completely the island and completely nothing.
Not the Pack, is it?
Yes, that's it.
Yep, Pack.
And there was another one that was called The Pack back in the 70s and the 80s, where you're watching it thinking it's going to wind up being a werewolf movie, and it's just not. And I'm still not sure exactly what it's about. I'm like, is it really wolves running through this major city? I don't think so, but I think there's something else going on. I'm not sure if that was called The Pack as well, but it may have been. Was that called The Pack also?
I think it might have been. I'm not 100% certain.
Yeah, because I'm sitting there like, does this fit in? Because I don't know. Do metaphysical wolves count? Then
You know,
you
it's
had that recent wolf movie that I can't think of off the top of my head.
there have been werewolves have been very hot the past couple
Well, I don't
years.
mean werewolves, but you had a wolf, and then,
Mhm.
like, it was like after a plane accident, and everybody's being picked off by this wolf. I'm trying to think the name of it. It's on top of
Gosh,
my head. As soon as I mention wolves, my brain goes, "Ooh!" I love
yeah.
watching the wolf of what was it? Snowfall.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen that one yet or not.
Mhm. I still always go back to Dog Soldiers as a superior werewolves film.
Yeah, but it was a werewolf movie in a way, but it's not. But it
Mhm.
is. But it's not.
Yeah, yeah, it's got that. But no, some other ones I'd visited. There's one from back in the '60s called Black Zoo
Okay.
that starred Michael Goh, and he is a owner of a zoo, and he's using hypnosis to get these animals to do heinous things to people, which are connected to his religious cult. And it's just a really weird take on the animal and mixing those two genres that are very distinct, the crazy cult genre with the animal genre. It's
Right.
called Black Zoo.
I've always thought Congo was interesting as well.
Congo
Back
is an
in the
interesting one. Yeah.
because you did have kind of like nature ran amok with the weird apes that were guarding the diamond mine,
Hmm.
which I thought was interesting. And I mean, come on, yes, we get Bruce Campbell. Sure, he gets offed very early on,
Very early.
but we still get Bruce Campbell, you
Yeah, for
know.
a little while. Yeah.
And that's something that was tripping me out the other day, reading up on Tremors, bringing going back to that movie. He was
Mhm.
actually supposed to be cast in Kevin Bacon's role.
Okay.
I was like, that would have been a totally different movie. I still would have enjoyed
Mhm.
watching it immensely, but anytime you can get Bruce Campbell into something, sign me up, please.
Exactly. Yeah.
Especially older
Yeah.
Bruce. Those
Mhm.
those granddaddy pics he's been taking with the beard. I'm just like, hello, sir.
Hello. Yeah. So,
Why
and then
isn't
the
Ash versus Evil Dead like this?
yeah.
He's like, nah, I
Uh,
gotta shave it. I'm less serious that way.
mhm. When I was thinking about you having me on here, one film that I forgot about, it's an all-time favorite film of mine, but it really, it hits into that area where nature run amok films, they have to have you have to have sympathy for the nature that is running amok.
Right.
If you don't, it doesn't really work well. But there was a film from 1984 called White Dog by Sam Peckinpah. And it is about a dog that has been adopted, but is actually what is called a white
Oh
dog,
yeah,
which
I
was
remember.
trained to attack and kill black people.
Yes.
And it's about the detraining and reprogramming of an animal that has been tortured to the point that it knows that it has to attack. And it's a really great, like, there's a trainer that takes, it is a just a project, because everybody's like, it's a white dog, you can't do anything with it, you have to kill it, you'll never teach it. And he goes in and tries to reprogram the dog for how he acts with it.
Right.
And it kind of comes in that kind of idea of like Cujo, in which you really are, focusing on the psyche of an individual animal that has gone crazy.
Now, does Cujo count?
Cujo technically would count, in the fact that it is nature, it's a rabid animal. So
What about Man's Best
it's
Friend?
loose. Yeah, not man's
Man's
best
Best
friend.
Friend, I think, dips too far into sci-fi.
Yeah. Yeah, that was Lance Henriksen with the Rottweiler, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep, I remember
I have
seeing
yet to
that.
see a movie where he has not brought his A game. I would, even in low budget indie fare where he's
Mhm.
just there collecting a mortgage payment. I have
Yeah.
not seen him make a movie where he didn't bring his 100% A game.
Oh no, Lance Henriksen is a consummate professional.
It's kind of like people who like diss on Ice-T.
Oh, he's a genius.
He is, but it's like, you know, he's in a lot of stuff, and I'm like, yeah, he's collecting a paycheck. You can't get mad at a guy who's making money. I mean, come on, he's on
Yeah.
CSI. What is not CSI? Oh, I can't think of it. One of those procedural shows.
Yes.
Cops.
The one that's spread off from Law and Order. Special Victims Unit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I was listening to him on a podcast recently, and I couldn't stop laughing because it was like during the whole COVID situation,
Mm-hmm.
and he's talking about going into a bank and having to pull up a mask, and he's like, I was having some flashbacks.
This is a weird thing. And this is, comes back to The Last of Us and everything in its own way. Is right now there's probably going to be a resurgence in the nature attack films,
Right.
if for another reason because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you have to start thinking about virus, bacteria, single cell organisms being the guardians of the earth, when all else has failed and everything is, it's the single celled creatures that take over.
Maybe we'll get a remake of that one Crichton story from back in the day. I'm trying to think of the name of it. With the virus in the town where there's only like two survivors,
Yes.
a baby and an old man.
So what was that? It'll hit me at some point.
I want to say they did a remake, like a TV remake of it, not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that would be something worth readapting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I can totally see them going back into the whole virus thing. I enjoyed that one Contagion movie, and maybe it was just called Contagion, but it had Christopher Pine in it.
I think that was the Steven Soderbergh Contagion.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but it had Christopher Pine in it, and it dealt with these kids just trying to survive and ride around and being careful who they come into contact with. And it all ends very badly for them, as such things do.
Yes.
And there was no, you're not dealing with zombies, and you're not dealing with anything of that nature. You're just dealing with a disease and trying not to be exposed to the disease. In fact, when I actually ran into Chris Pine once, at the Maryland Film Festival, him trying to be incognito at Bulls and Bears there down off not too far away from Maryland Theater. Yeah, it was the first thing I brought to his attention because I was all like, hey, I know you. And he's like, oh crap, I've been recognized. So, yeah, that movie called Contagion. And he just looked at me and was like, of all my movies, is that the one you want to bring up? And I'm like, I didn't want to be obvious, Captain. But no, that was a fun experience because he's been down there because I want to say it was Jeremy Carnahan, but there was a movie, I want to say Stretch, that had premiered at Maryland Film Festival.
Okay.
And Chris Pine, granted, he had played a major role in the Stretch movie. I want to say it was called either Stretch, but it was about a limo driver. And he was kind of the villain toward the end of the film. And it was a very interesting movie. And then, of course, I go into the bar over there for some of the after parties and to hand out flyers for this show and many others. And yeah, just stumbling into him like, wait, I know who you are. And I got to have whiskey with the captain that night.
All right.
So got my brawl signed. That's how baller I am.
Awesome.
But, misadventures aside. But no, like animal films are great. I love them to death. I could see where it could get into the microbe genre, but I think, how can I put it best? We're not far enough removed from COVID where I think people would be comfortable with that yet, but we're getting to that point. We might have movies like The Hot Zone all over again and things of that nature, but I think it's going to be a ways off because a lot of people's like,
at some point it'll be reactive because when I was doing some just basic research on these animal films, they seem to all follow into like the core ones. The canon are from the 70s, and you had 1970 was the first time Earth Day was officially celebrated. And of course, it was the first time that, the Earth and ecology was really kind of taken, like, there's something not right here.
Yeah.
So, it's the best horror is a direct reference to what is, society's fear at that time.
Right. Mother Nature strikes back, and yeah, like Anaconda to a degree. The first one, we're not talking about any of the sequels, and it's crossover.
I've never seen the sequels. I really don't have any desire.
They eventually crossed over to Lake Placid, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and some other weird de-evolutions, but the first one's just fun to watch because, again, total popcorn creature flick.
That one was Ice Cube, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're getting all the ice wrappers out today from Ice Cube. Just not Vanilla Ice, so we're good.
No.
He's gotten a little weird for my taste. Doesn't he do a home improvement show now?
I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me.
I think he does. I think he does one of those things where he buys like a wrecked house and fixes it up and then flips it. And the whole time you watch it, you're just like, if there's a problem, I'll solve it. But no, I mean, I kind of hope we get a new like spur of like the animal attacks, and I hope a lot more of the indie filmmakers and like the smaller filmmakers seeing like something like Cocaine Bear, even if it's off the wall, you can still make money and have fun making.
That again is, I think, the most important thing about Cocaine Bear is it was a truly entertaining movie.
Yes.
And it did, I mean, did it hold up for a second viewing? Not as much as I want, but it did fill that, popcorn fodder, matinee, let's go to the cinema and escape.
Yes.
It did fill that beautifully.
And it's one of those type of films where you sit down and you watch it and go, wow, this is a trip, but you're gonna enjoy laughing. You're not gonna feel bad for any of these characters, maybe the kids. Especially them talking about doing cocaine, and I'm just sitting there dying of laughter in the row seats. And of course, Al's sitting there, and even my kid's like, Sasha's in on some sort of joke I don't know about.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was humorous, it was enjoyable, but I'm just curious if somebody can say, okay, let's take this and let's do straight horror again, or something intriguing, because it's not too often that we get something kind of like, well, here we have an animal in its natural environment and it's in check, but let's take it out of its environment and put it somewhere else. Kind of like that really weird zany episode of The Simpsons where Bart gets flogged for bringing a frog into Australia, but do that, but different, like with a more serious situation where an animal gets into where it's not supposed to be and it becomes
an invasive species, but really an invasive species.
Yes. And it becomes something more dominating than what it should be, not like the snakehead problem that we have now.
Yeah,
with like certain lakes and streams and tributaries, but something where it's a little bit more creepier and a little bit more screwed up. Like, hey, yeah, we transplanted this alpha predator that had checks and balances wherever it was from into XYZ continent, and now we have a huge problem.
We even had a reference to that in the last Jurassic Park film. Yeah.
But that was more, the dinosaurs were a ruse to get to the whole, you have
cicada.
Yeah,
like, it's the like, truly horrible thing that they are thinking about doing, could destroy agriculture as we know it.
It's like, okay, we get that this is the message about, but we want to watch dinosaurs fucking shit.
The dinosaurs, yeah.
That's what we want to see,
Yeah.
At the end of the day, every time I watch that, I know we're getting closer and closer to the Fast and Furious Jurassic Park crossover, which has already been talked about.
Seriously?
Yes. Universal's like, oh yes, we do want to get into that whole shared universe thing. It's like, Don't do that. Just make Cadillacs and Dinosaurs a movie and be done with it. Or if you're going to be really nerdy,
Just
call
Tammy and the T-Rex and love it, you know.
just give me Xenozoic Tales. Do a straightforward adaptation of book. I get it. Most people won't recognize the name, but do that. Got a post-apocalyptic Earth. There's dinosaurs here. We don't know why. You got people who maintain vehicles known as the mechanics. It's now part of their religion. And you get cool Cadillacs and dinosaurs, and yeah, I can see that in live action. Pay me,
It's like dinosaurs meet Road Warrior.
Yes, essentially. I mean, it worked for the whole Mad Max meets zombie movies with Wormwood.
Okay,
Dinosaurs and Road Warrior. Sign me up, please. I'd pay to see it, but not not Let's Cram Fast and Furious mixed with Jurassic Park. I'm good. Just stop.
Yeah, that's there's no.
It's like Universal. You all started the whole shared universe thing. Y'all should know how this works. You've already screwed up the dark universe how many times?
Yeah,
it's like go back to
me into Tokyo Drift.
Yes. It's like you all need to figure out how to do the shared universe properly. Watch your own stuff. You got the Wolfman and Frankenstein together way back.
I can just see Vin Diesel riding a Velociraptor.
Yes.
With Ludacris beside him,
Oh God, Luda.
Blue, keep going, Blue. Keep going, Blue.
I'm good. No, I read about that recently, and I'm like, Universal, let's not use your cocaine budget for those concepts. Clearly, feed it to bears. It works better for you.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to admit, because you brought up the fact that I want to say that Cocaine Bear was written and directed by the person who did the first Charlie's Angels, right?
Yeah. Was it I think it was the second remake of Charlie's Angels.
That one.
It wasn't as bad as the first remake, but it was still
not good.
Not that wonderful.
I would call this
it had a little bit more of it made better fun of itself than the first film did.
Okay. So this could be a redemption story. Maybe they can get more into comedy and horror.
I think that might be the winning mixture for Elizabeth Banks.
Yes.
She's going to be the next thing she's going to be offered or whatever is probably going to be a very similar thing.
I hope not. Don't get pigeonholed. Just do comedy and horror. Stay away from drugs and animals, please.
Yes, exactly.
Or if you want to do something else with animals, do another Nature Runs Amok. Maybe try straightforward horror this time, because clearly she knows the comedic beats, and
and there's not that much of a difference.
Yes, horror the same way.
If you can do comedy very well,
you can do
horror very well, which can go back to people like Lucio Fulci.
Like Sam Raimi. Do horror and comedy. Helps to have Bruce Campbell, who's great at physical comedy, but I'm quite sure there's enough actors out there now.
Well, he's the closest thing we have to a slapstick artist.
Yes.
There's as much, Buster Keaton as there is Texas Chainsaw Massacre in his stuff.
Right. And I mean, come on, he made a movie called My Name is Bruce, where he makes fun of himself the whole way through the movie. You got to admit, that takes some acting chops.
Yeah.
I'm me playing me, but like me to the nth degree, but worse. But no, well, we might as well consider wrapping this up at this point. You want to give me some of your links? You'd mentioned also that you have a podcast coming up.
Well, I have a podcast coming up, Popcorn Echelon, where I'll be talking about 36 Chambers of the Shaolin, also known as Master Killer.
Okay.
It was a Shaw Brother film that was a training film with Gordon Lau. That movie ended up being what a lot of people, I think, consider Rocky is for them. It pulled me out of a massive depression because it followed this, very down and out person who was just out of desperation went to the Shaolin and starts moving up the chambers to become a master of Shaolin.
Hmm.
It's really, really wonderful. I produce a weekly show called Ambassador Radio. It's ambassadorradio.org. From there, you can hit up my Facebook and Instagram. It's on multiple stations. It will be until legally taken down. I'll also be putting it on YouTube. I've got a couple projects I'm thinking about. 120 Days of Sodom is another possible syndicated program that would be specifically looking at dark, extreme music.
Okay. Well, that's all stuff to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
I think you'd also be good for like, because I don't see a lot of people online talking like
Mm-hmm.
the whole audiophile aspect and like looking at vinyl. I mean, vinyl collecting's hot right now.
Oh yeah, it is.
But I haven't seen a whole lot of YouTubers or podcasters talking about it, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they will get into the genre of music, but not so much like, hey, check out these 45s I picked up recently. And no, kids, I'm not talking about weapons, so don't get all on YouTubes. So, but you know what I mean. There's definitely expansion there. You've got a great personality, so I say go for it. And anybody who's listening, watching, definitely check it out.
Yeah,
and once you figure out an RSS feed, you should get your stuff up on Spotify.
Yeah, well, I mean, my movie background is very wide, especially Italian cinema, Japanese cinema, but 1970s American cinema and low-end cinema at that time. I hate to use the term low-end, but low-budget cinema. And then music, I've been a kind of a salsa historian since I was a child. So, you can, contact me through the website, ambassadorradio.org. I always love, being a guest and talking about things that I have a great love for.
All right. Well, as a pleasure. It's always chatting with you.
Well, thank you so much for having me on.
Yep. We're going to have to
definitely
do this again. Might have to collab on another project, like a review or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I'd love to go through the zombie cycle, but damn,
that would be awesome.
It's a slog, and I would do it piecemeal, one at a time. And we could even venture off into kind of like your concept of the zombie and then the straightforward sequels. And then hopefully get them in the correct sequential orders. Obviously, we won't include Dawn of the Dead because honestly, everybody's like, well, that's technically Zombie 2. And I'm like, no, it's Zombie 1 to me because it's the one from Fulci.
Yeah.
So, it might be Zombie 2 over there or Zombie 2 over there, but it's Zombie over here. Especially with the eye. That was the one thing that disappointed me about the Wii U when they released Zombie U. And they just had the U at the end of it, and it just had the eye. I was sitting there like, wait, is this Fulci reference? Oh my god, it's Fulci reference. And that took me down a weird rabbit hole when it came to like games based on Dawn of the Dead movies. And I was like, wait, there was PC games based on Dawn of the what? And yeah, weird rabbit hole if you ever get bored. Something to look into, and just blew my mind where that took me. But anyways, it's a pleasure always having you on.
Thank you very much.
As we always tell everyone here, take care and unpleasant screams.
Thank you.